Hello and welcome to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle for another week, and we're getting towards the business end of the NBL season. We saw some dramatic finishes in round 15 of the NBL. We saw some big results, good and bad, for a lot of the teams fighting for finals positions. And now we prepare for round 16. The Perth Wildcats, on the back of Vic Law and Bryce Cotton catching fire, return home. There's some troubles at the Cairns Taipans and the Adelaide 36ers we'll get to. Interesting times as well for the Alier Hawks and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, who are fighting for those finals spots. We'll catch up with the master coach, Rob Beveridge, as well. So plenty for us to get through. I'm Chris Pike, but the man you've all tuned in to hear from, the former Illawarra Hawks and Sydney Kings power forward, the Warwick Senators captain in NBL1, Cody Ellis. Are you holding up okay this week? You were in quarantine last week, and things might have not quite gone to plan since.
Yeah, not quite, mate. Look, thanks for having me again, man. Always good. Look, we said hopefully this week would be face-to-face, but clearly not the case. The night of my 6th day of quarantine, I developed symptoms and tested positive for COVID. So had to restart my quarantine all over again, which is not ideal, but it is what it is, man. So, I think I'm on day 4 now again. So happy days after this week, and I'll be have that immunity that they're talking about for 8 weeks, which will be good, man. So hopefully next week will be face to face.
Yes, let's hope so. Unlucky, wasn't it? Just on the same day that you got out of 7 days of quarantine, you came down, started to feel unwell, and tested positive. Wasn't quite the celebration of getting out of isolation you were hoping for.
Yeah, not quite, man. Not quite. So, look, like I said, is what it is, man. And I guess I'm happier to be getting it now than midway through our season.
Yeah, sure.
But frustrating, man. Frustrating.
Yeah, it is. But if you miss 2 weeks of training at this point of the year, it's probably not the worst thing, is it? So you can probably deal with that and get back into action soon. As we talked about, there's a lot to get to in this week's show in terms of what's happening on the basketball court. We'll catch up with Bevo as well and have a chat to him about a lot of things, about how his Boomers experience was, and he's got to Perth now and how he's settling in with his new job at the Rockingham Flames, and also he's about to head back for what he calls his last coaching stint over in the New Zealand NBL. So we'll talk to him about all of that shortly. But a horrible note to start with, to be honest, Cody. And you never like to use tragedy in a sporting sense, but this is a tragedy in a life sense, because a teammate of yours, a championship teammate, I think, in the West Coast Classic season, Alier Riak has passed away this week. It was a tragedy that happened. It was a horrible incident that happened to him in Melbourne. There's no words to describe it. I'm not quite sure what to say about it, but except to get your reaction. How horrified were you to find out?
It's never really the call that you want to be getting. So it was Sunday morning that I got the call. Day 1 of my new quarantine week, and got the call from one of the higher ups at Warwick, and was told that he'd gotten into an altercation when he was out celebrating his 23rd birthday with mates in Melbourne, and he was pulled from his car, he was stabbed, and then he passed away in the hospital later in the morning. And look, I mean, obviously very hard, very heavy-hearted right now. But just thinking of his family, I can only imagine the immense pain that they're going through, and he had a fairly large family over here. Like I said, I can't imagine what they're going through, and it's got to be so tough for them. And he was a teammate of mine for a few years, and you're right, he was part of our West Coast Classic team that won it that year. He was a big part of it before he went back off to college. And, Alier was one of those guys that he'd step into the room and it would just illuminate the room straight away. He'd always walk into practice with a big smile on his face, and he'd always be happy to be there and happy to see you. And he was just an amazing human being, not even thinking about the basketball court, just as a person. Yeah, just a great person. And I think tragedy is definitely the word to use because it was, and it was senseless, senseless, cowardly, whatever you want to put next to it. Very tough, and it was tough calling around to some of the boys and telling them about it. And look, we're all still at a bit of a loss for words, to be honest with you. It's tough, man. It's tough, and I still can't quite believe that it's happened. And I'm not really too sure what else to say, man. But my thoughts are with his family and all that at this time.
No, you've done well, Cody, and thanks for sharing those words. And it's much more than a basketball story, because this is somebody's life that we're talking about that's lost. But in a basketball sense, I don't think it's unrealistic to think that he had an NBL potential future. I mean, we saw him play some outstanding basketball, especially in that championship season that you talked about, where as a big guy, he had great handles, he could carry the ball, he could shoot the outside ball, and had some great moves inside and had really good size. He was going to be playing up in Darwin for their new NBL1 team this year, and as you said, he'd only just turned 23. I think, from a basketball sense, the sky was almost the limit for him.
Yeah, it was, man. And, he was always working on his game. He was always getting extras in. Every chance he got at an open gym, he'd be there. He'd be playing. We used to run just some open gym sessions in the off season just to keep a basketball in our hands. And he would go from one at Herb Graham straight to our one to come play with us as well. And look, he's extremely talented, extremely talented and extremely hardworking. And you're right. I think that he certainly had a chance to put his foot in the door for an NBL team, and unfortunately, we'll never be able to see that happen. But look, he had all the potential in the world there, man, and it's sad.
Yeah, no, it is. It's terrible, and it's a hard way to start the show, but there's also probably no other way we could have started this show, unfortunately. And like you said so well, our thoughts go out to all of his family, and there's nothing really we can say that makes this any better for them, unfortunately. But let's try to get onto some basketball, Cody. And probably the biggest thing to take out of this past weekend was the emergence or re-emergence of Vic Law as a match winner for the Perth Wildcats, and his partnership with Bryce Cotton. It's pretty special right now, and Vic had to stand up and play big, because there was no Matty Hodgson there against some big teams over their 3 games over that 5-day stretch, and they ended up winning all 3 of them. We saw what Bryce Cotton did to be Bryce Cotton to win that game against the Breakers, but they don't win those 3 games that they did without the dominance of Vic Law as a scorer and as a rebounder and as a physical presence. It was pretty impressive for them to finish their stretch of 14 road games the way that they did.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Vic he's playing out of his skin right now. And, I think NBA teams probably need to be taking notice.
Yep, sure.
Man, against the New Zealand team, he put on a mid-range masterclass. That was so much fun to watch, and it was so impressive. And he just proved that he's a bit of an unstoppable force there, because he does have that strength, but he's also agile and really should be playing a 3. But as a 4, he's just a handful, because he's too strong for a 3, So you put him in the 3 spot, and he's just going to post up your wings. So you have to put a 4 on him, but he's just too agile for him. And man, we are really starting to see him and Bryce figure it out together, which is scary now that they're coming home to a 9-game stretch to finish the season out. The most impressive thing for me has been his rebounding too.
Oh yeah,
we knew he could score the ball, but the Cats needed a dominant rebounder, and he's stuck his hand up and he's done that. And he's gone on, and it's been really, really impressive just how he's gone after the boards.
Yeah, it's massive, and especially in that first game last Thursday against Melbourne United that they won 97-87. That was potentially their huge Achilles heel without Hodgson, where Luala Chul and Huck Porty were going to dominate them. But Vic ends up pulling down 18 rebounds in that game, and I know Mitch Norton had a huge game as well. a career high 26 points, but without those 18 rebounds from Vic Law, they don't win that game.
No, they don't. And you're right, Nordo was massive in that game, and I think for the Cats to be successful come playoffs, I think Nordo has to be that guy, and so does Todd.
Yep.
But you're right. 18 boards against especially against the Melbourne squad is huge. And that's just, rebounding is wanting the ball and wanting to get after it. And we just saw that he wants it and he wants to get after it. And a 20 and 18 game against the league leaders right now is massive. And yeah, I mean, like I've said, the fact that him and Cotton have now started to figure it out and figure out how to play together properly, it's scary.
Absolutely it is. And you touched on it before, it's his mid-range game. How happy or how relieved were you when they were down by 2, they needed a score against the Breakers to send the game to overtime, that they went for a 2? They didn't try to get that 3.
Oh man, it was good. That was the right play.
Absolutely.
And to be fair, I didn't even think of that because I just figured Bryce for the 3 for the win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was probably on New Zealand's mind as well, which is why Vic got so open and got to his spot. And I mean, as soon as he got there and rose up, that was money all day, especially after the game he'd had.
Yep. Never was missing.
No, it didn't, and it was good. How good that a team down 2 went for the tie instead
went for a 2.
Well, that's the thing, and then they backed themselves in overtime to go to overtime and get it done, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, they had Bryce Cotton. That's why he's done a lot of those in overtime now in his NBL career. We kind of expected, but it's still remarkable. He got fouled on the shot as well. He missed the 4-point play, but it didn't matter. I mean, can you sum up that shot at the end that broke the hearts of the Breakers?
Oh, I mean, it's just Bryce being Bryce, man. I've said it before. That's what he does. He caught the ball down the other end with, I think it was about 6 seconds left.
Yep.
And I was like, well, all right, game over. Kind of stood up and started walking out the room because I knew what was going to happen. Decent contest by Wetzel, but too close again. Fouled him, and then nothing but net. Didn't even hit the rim or anything like that. And that's the game. And that's Bryce being Bryce. And, one of the best imports of all time. So, I mean, just ask Homicide. He'll tell you.
He goes further. I think Homicide thinks he's actually the best player the NBL's ever seen, which he's got some stiff competition for, which maybe Homicide doesn't understand the history quite as well as some others, but he's putting forward a hell of a case at the same time is Bryce. I mean, before we move on from the Wildcats, the fact that they won those 3 games in the space of 5 days on the road, they now get to come home to the 9 home games. They went 8-5 on the road, so they return home 13-6. That's probably better than they could have ever hoped for if you told them, 3 months ago they were going to be playing 14 straight road games.
Oh, for sure. And these last 4 games before they were coming home, my thought is that they probably needed to split it, right? They needed to go 2 and 2 there to be fairly safe coming home. And I mean, they went out and won them all. And coming home now to the Red Army. I don't think it's going to be the full force of the Red Army. I think capacity is only going to be about half, but that's still scary enough.
We're still going to get about 7,000 there. So most other cities would die for that sort of a crowd. Yeah,
I know, and it's crazy when you think that half of the Red Army is 7,000 people. So. Yeah, man, they're in a really good spot, and I think if they just take care of business at home, then they'll be top 1 or 2 for sure.
Yep, it does look like it. Okay, we'll get to the rest of the round now as well, Cody. So let's run through the results, and then we'll dive a bit deeper. As we said, started Thursday night, the Wildcats beating United 97-87. Then Friday night, the Cairns Taipans stunk it up big time in this one. The scoreboard doesn't quite reflect it, but the Tasmania JackJumpers 85 over the Taipans 69. The Wildcats again over the Brisbane Bullets 95-83. Another game that probably isn't one that we will reflect on too fondly, but the New Zealand Breakers got a got a drought-breaking win, beat the Adelaide 36ers 84-75. The JackJumpers kept winning as well, 81-77 over the Illawarra Hawks. And then Melbourne United, a remarkable comeback. They were down by 9 with 4 minutes to go, and they outscored the Phoenix 22-4 the rest of the way to win 98-90. The Sydney Kings then too good for the Taipans, 96-77, even without Xavier Cooks. And then finally, as we talked about, Monday night, the overtime game, the Wildcats beat the Breakers 104-102. Why don't we start with the JackJumpers, Cody? Last week we talked about how it's a race in 5 for the top 4 spots. Have they put themselves in the mix? Is it a battle in 6 teams now?
They have, 100%. I think they're 10-9 now. Then you got Hawks at 11-8 and Phoenix 11-7.
Yeah.
Kings 12-7. They're right there. And you know, we've said it in the past weeks, like they're a dangerous team. I think down the stretch here at the end of the season, they can certainly make a push for that 4 with, you know, the Kings have, I think, 9 games left and only 2 of them at home.
Yes.
You know, the Hawks we're not sure about ever when they step on the floor. Phoenix is starting to become a bit similar, you know, and you know what you're going to get from the JackJumpers. You know, if their shot's falling, then they're a force to be reckoned with. And I think they have certainly, with this weekend gone by, put their hand up to be in that 4th spot.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a lot right. One thing that wasn't very pretty, though, was when the Hawks went for the full press break at the end of the game to try to pressure them, and it ended up being MiKyle McIntosh bringing the ball up the floor. Those were probably the 2 worst attempts to break the press I've ever seen.
Ever.
Have you seen a worse effort than that?
I don't think so. I've been part of some fairly awful efforts, but never have had my 5-man try and split 2 really good defenders back-to-back times for easy layups.
And then try to pretend he's shooting at the same time, and then wonder where the foul was.
I'm not sure what was going through his head. Yeah, that was not ideal. Not ideal. So, you know, in that case, I mean, look, Scott Roth took a timeout then and changed it up for him,
and they broke it the next play, and then ended up with two players free down the other end.
They did, and you know that's something that on the fly you've got to be able to pick that up. Like it shouldn't take a timeout from a coach to draw up your press break. As a 4-5 man, you should never be trying to split a double team in the backcourt. You know,
especially when he had 2 open men to pass to either side of him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, if you're getting double teamed, someone's open, right? He had people open right next to him, and that's what just doesn't make sense. So, look, it didn't end up hurting him, but that's stuff that come playoffs, if they make playoffs, that will hurt you. That will be, you know, you play Perth, that's Bryce knocking down a 3 for the game again.
Yep.
It's completely different come playoffs. That brain fade is an understatement.
Yes, and you're right, though. They're lucky it didn't hurt them. What did hurt, though, was for the Phoenix. As I said before, they were in an almost unlosable position with 4 minutes to go against Melbourne United, but they managed to lose. Now, losing Mitch Creek late in the game for his second tech foul when he stepped over the line didn't help. It's the second time we've seen that now in the last couple of weeks. We saw Jalen Adams do it as well, but obviously it hurt Mitch doubly because he had already received that unsportsmanlike foul earlier. What did you think of that incident, and what did you think of United overrunning the Phoenix as well?
That was a heck of a game. That was a really good game to watch. I thought the Phoenix were tough for most of the game. You know, Creek was near unstoppable again.
Yep.
You know, Mumford was tough again, and Big Joe Chi with 16 and 12. You know, he was just his big presence again, which was really good. And then, look, they just kind of fell into a heap. And that's a perfect example of how momentum can just completely swing a game. You know, Melbourne got hot, played some really good defense, forced Creaky to make a silly foul at one end, get the unsportsmanlike foul. which it 100% was, you know.
Yeah.
They were saying that, he was playing the ball, but he wasn't. He was trying to grab him, which is fair. And then, putting a toe on the end line in the last 2 minutes, that's a tech foul.
Yep.
You need to know that. Look, I think that rule needs to change. I think there's a few rules in the NBL that needs to change. It's massive. And it's at that point, I think Melbourne had all the momentum anyway. But I think that really cut the head off the Phoenix then. But it does. That rule needs to change. I don't think that an unsportsmanlike and a tech should be an ejection. I don't think that, I think there needs to be certain levels to your unsportsmanlikes. You know, the NBA does it. You know, you've got your flagrant 1 and your 2, and they've got different penalties, which I get. The fact that the NBL goes and looks at this stuff now, I think, is the perfect time to be able to implement that judgment system.
Well, let's be honest. How is it the same punishment for stepping your toe on the line as it is for doing something physical against a player to stop him? I mean, how is it the same punishment?
It just doesn't make sense. And, you know, to the letter of the law, 100%, you know, it is what it is. That's what happened. But that's where I think the NBL needs to implement some newer rules around that. But in the meantime, you've got to be smarter. You understand the rules. It's happened in the season already. You know it can happen. You need to be smarter than that. And you need to adjust. You know, that's one of the rules that is set in stone. It's not a judgment call or anything like that.
Yeah.
That is set in stone. You need to be smarter than that. You shouldn't be stepping over the line anyway. It's an odd one. It's an odd case that probably needs to be looked at. I don't know if it will or what, but look, I know some of the players around the league have thought that it's certainly a rule that needs to change.
Well, it almost cost the Kings against the Wildcats as well when Jalen Adams did it. I mean,
yes, it did.
I mean, the Wildcats didn't make them pay, but they could have. That could have cost them the game.
Oh, for sure. And again, that's players needing to be smarter.
Yeah.
You know, that to me, that rule makes sense. If you jump over the line, then it's during the course of the game, then it's a delay of game, right? If you've already got a delay of game, then it's a tech foul straight away. Last 2 minutes, it's an automatic tech. That's fine. That rule to me, I don't think should change. You shouldn't be jumping over the line. There's no reason for you to jump over the line or stick your hands over the line. But yeah, like that's the small stuff that can cost you games, can cost you championships, can cost you making that top 4. It's the players are going to be a bit smarter with that.
Speaking of being smarter, the teams that have a dominant post presence or a potentially dominant post presence, do they need to find a way to use them? To me, the Taipans are the best example, and Adam Ford knows this. Adam Ford's fully aware of it. Adam Ford's telling his team to use Steve and Zimmerman down in the block. For whatever reason, they're just not doing it. So their game on Friday night where they were terrible against the JackJumpers, the end margin of 16 points doesn't tell the story of how badly they were beaten, but their only positive from the game was Zimmerman. So his numbers look okay, 19 points, 8 rebounds, but he only got 13 shots for the game, and there was big stretches where he just didn't see the ball at all. And after the game, 40 made it clear that he didn't understand why he didn't take 30 shots for the game, given the dominance he could have against a Tasmania team that, as we talked on before, basically their centre is McIntosh or Krislovic right now, who at best are 6'7". I mean, Duop Reath is another example of the Hawks. He's a great post player, great player in the block. No one can guard him if he gets the ball down there with one-on-one coverage. The Hawks don't go to him a hell of a lot either. Why do the teams not do it, and should they be doing it more?
I have no idea why they're not doing it. You're right. Watching that game against Tasmania, an undersized Tasmanian team.
Yep.
You're right. Zim should have had 30 shots, and I don't understand why he doesn't get the ball down there. You know, he has 19 points off 13 shots. That's pretty efficient.
Yeah.
For someone who really only shoots inside the charge circle.
Yep.
And then, you know, you go to their game
on Sunday.
Sunday against Sydney.
Sunday against the Kings, he took 7 shots. It was even worse.
Yeah. So I just, I don't understand it. I don't get it. And again, Sydney aren't a massive team.
No.
Like, you've got Jarrell Martin in there, but he's not a monster by any stretch.
And they didn't have Cooks. And when they played last week, it was Cooks that was actually guarding Zimmerman as well, and Cooks wasn't there.
Yeah, and that's it. Zimmerman's too strong for Zave. Zave's smart and he fights around and all that sort of stuff. But, Zimmerman, again, he's stronger than Martin. He's going to get in there.
Yep.
It's not... Zim's game is unorthodox. That's one way to put it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always pretty, but when he gets it down low, he gets it done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's proven that in the past couple of weeks. Start of the year, he was kind of up and down a bit, but he's been really good the past couple of weeks when he gets the ball. But the ball seems to stick in the guard's hands a lot. And it's a tough one, man. I think McCall's a very ball-dominant guard. He needs the ball to be successful. And I think I think most of their guards are like that, to be honest with you.
They are.
Which sucks for Zim, because
it does.
And Nate finally got out there, which was awesome to see.
Yep.
And the difference is they pounded the ball into Nate 3-4 times in a row.
They did.
Like, I'm not sure why they don't do that with Zim too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very confusing. And then you're right with Reath, and he's a better player than Zimmerman.
Oh, he's got moves that they couldn't stop in the NBA.
No, exactly. He's got such good touch. He's got his little fadeaway. He's got his hooks down low. He can drag you out to the three. But you've got a guy like Timmy Conrad coming in and shooting more shots than Reath. That shouldn't happen. That's nothing against Timmy, because when he subs in, his nickname's the microwave for a reason, right?
Yes.
So he comes in, he does what he does. He's out there to shoot the ball, and he does that. He does that really well. But over the course of the game, there's no way he should shoot more shots than Reath. And I'm not saying that Tim shouldn't shoot those shots, right?
No, of course.
They need to find Duop down low. They have to. And it's another case of their guards being so ball dominant. Harvey needs the ball. Rath and Mays needs the ball. Cleveland doesn't as much, but he's starting to be more aggressive, which is, I think, is good for them because he's shown that he can do that. Jessup needs the ball. I don't know if it's a thing that Gorge is talking to him about, but he needs to have that ball inside and go to work, because he's another one that's fairly unstoppable down low.
I agree. And to be honest, if they don't start doing that more, I think they miss the playoffs.
They're in trouble. Yep, yeah. I agree with you.
Another thing that I can't quite understand, Cody, we had 2 games up in Cairns on the weekend, and we still didn't have Alex Loudon with a microphone in his hands. It was perfect for him. He would have loved the chance. He would have loved to chat with Nate Jarwai for his 200th game on Sunday. It was made for Big Louse to take over. Where is he? Why is he still not there?
I have no idea, mate. I have no idea. But you're right. It would have been the perfect opportunity. Speaking of Nate, for his 200th in Indigenous round, they were teammates for a long time, and they've known each other for a long time, and that would have been the perfect chance to put him in there. But I guess they've got other plans. So look, I'm hoping we see Lousy there one day. But it's clearly not going to happen this year.
Doesn't look like it. But what we can do, Cody, is speak to Louse ourselves, and next week he's on our schedule, so it'll be good to catch up with him.
Happy days.
Okay, Cody, let's take a different tack. Let's get to our awards for round 15 in the NBL before we get to Rob Beveridge on the show this week. And our men have come through for us this week. They got in nice and early, and they've given their votes, so it's not often we can say that about Damien Martin and Sean Redditch, but good on them for this week. So let's start with the Damo, the Best Defensive Player Award, thanks to Everlast Beverages. And I will rat him out a little bit. He made a late change after Monday night with the game that Yanni Wetzel had. So He's ended up going 1 vote Matt Kenyon from the JackJumpers, 2 votes for Yanni Wetzel after that. I think it was, 17 points, 18 rebounds for the Breakers against the Wildcats, and Shea Ili for his game for Melbourne United, probably especially his performance against the Phoenix.
Yep.
You happy with those? There's one player that he's dumped from his votes for this week. Do you reckon you know who that would have been?
Oh, who would he have dumped from his votes this week? Jeez, there's probably a big
fella. It was a big fella. I'll give you that.
It was a big fella.
Mm-hmm.
What's a good one? Tell you what, there's probably a couple people that
have a think about late against the Phoenix.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been Huck Porty, would it?
It was. He was in Damo's votes until Yanni Wetzel did what he did.
Till Yanni did what he did. No, that's fair.
Yep.
And I think Ariel really good this weekend, and a bit of an underrated defender because of all the defenders he's got around him. Really.
Oh, absolutely. We've talked before. They could genuinely have 5 candidates for the best defensive player, and that's not including Huck Porty. And now suddenly Huck Porty might even put himself in that mix.
No, you're right. And that's where Melbourne are going to be able to hold their hat come finals is on the defensive end. So, and we saw that against the Phoenix in that last 5 minutes of the game. They put the clamps on, all of a sudden Phoenix couldn't score. And you're right, Huck Porty has been really good. So he was probably stiff to miss out. But I think Yanni was pretty decent as well.
Yeah, he was. And I'm glad he's given Kenyon some recognition as well. I think he's the backbone of the defense down there at the JackJumpers and doing a lot of good things. Now for the Redditch Basketball Player of the Year, thanks to the scoring machine. He had a tough job this week. To be fair, there was always going to be some unlucky players, but I think he's gone pretty well. I think he's gone 1 vote for Mitch Creek, 2 votes for Matthew Dellavedova, 3 votes Jalen Adams, 4 votes Bryce Cotton, 5 votes for Vic Law. There's unlucky players, but those 5 are pretty deserving, I would have thought.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. There's unlucky players, but those 5 showed their dominance this week. Vic especially, Bryce was Bryce. He's getting back to his old self again. Jalen Adams just keeps doing his thing, which is fun to see. Just hits those timely big shots as well. Delhi's starting to get a bit more confidence in his shot. He'll still shoot an air ball here and there, but he's starting to get some. Yeah, well, that's the thing, and he's starting to get some confidence in it, which is going to be a scary thing come playoffs if he's starting to knock that down at a half decent clip. And then Mitch Creek was dominant again this round. He's a tough guard. He's that undersized 4-man that should probably be playing a 3, but is so strong that you put a wing on him, he's just going to post you up and big boy you. So, I've got no issues with any of those at all.
It's a tight leaderboard. So Bryce is now back in front on 28, Jalen Adams 25, Mitch Creek 21, Lawala Chul 18, Vic Law 17. Is that pretty right? Do you think those are the best 5 players so far in the league? And I guess throwing it forward, would that be your all first team 5 right now, or would Xavier Cooks sneak in?
Look, I would probably. It's tough. I'd want Cooks in there, but it's going to depend on how they vote for it.
Yeah,
are they going to go with a 1 guard, a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, a power forward, and a center, or are they going to go for the 5 best players?
Yeah,
it's going to be tough because I think Zave should be in MVP conversations purely with how he's played, but he probably hasn't played enough games. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, man. It's a good problem to have because you got so many people that could be vying for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Speaking of that, the Galen Award for the best team man in the NBL is never an easy choice. My list probably isn't as extensive this week as it is sometimes, so I'm happy for you to nominate somebody else if I've missed somebody. But there was 4 guys that stood out to me because they battled so hard inside against the odds for their team. So Majuk did that for the Perth Wildcats in all 3 games. Without Matt Hodgson there, his numbers don't jump out at you, but the work that he did, he played more minutes than he has all season in across the board on average in those 3 games, and his points and rebounds were up as a result, and just his physical presence of being there with a big body was massive. The Sydney Kings needed somebody to stand up with Xavier Cook's not there, and I thought, given he's only played 1 game in the last 3 months, I thought MiKyle McIntosh did a massive job. 10 rebounds he ended up in that game, and he was a big reason why the Taipans couldn't take advantage of Sydney inside as well. So might surprise you to see him on that list, but I think he earned his spot. Ariel Hukporti, for all the reasons we talked about just before for what he's doing now for Melbourne, and they've got 2 genuine superstar 5-men right now with the way he's playing. And then another perhaps surprise, without Will Magnay, the JackJumpers are very small, and the guys that are playing that 5 spot have to make themselves bigger, and they have to be standing tall, make an impact, and Fab Krislovic is doing that, and he did that in both those 2 big wins against the Taipans and the Hawks. So that's the 4 I wanted to nominate, Cody. Is there anyone else that you wanted to put in the mix?
No, I probably had my sights set on one person before the list.
I hope he's one of those 4, is he?
He's on the list, so don't worry.
Excellent.
But look, the 2 that I would probably narrow it down to are Majuk and Ariel Hukporti. Again, both just playing such important roles for their teams. You're right. I think MiKyle McIntosh was really good this weekend once he got the opportunity. I think he stepped up big time. He was great for them. Fab he's been someone who's come in and just gained more confidence throughout the season. And now his 3-point shot starting to fall again. So that makes him a threat from outside as well. And you're right, for a JackJumpers team that is undermanned without Magnay in there, he does pretty well at holding his own. He got a chance to battle against Big Nate for a couple of years, so he'd be used to battling the big boys. So he's doing a really good job too. Majuk has been huge for the Cats. I think that his role goes, overlooked a bit too much. And it's something that when he was originally signed by the Cats, I thought that was a massive signing for them. And people were kind of just like, oh, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't score, But he's there to be the cleanup guy. He sets some really good picks. He battles down low. I think he did a really good job in the Melbourne game. I thought he kept Luella Chul quiet. Start of the game, I think JLA got a couple little easy ones, and then you could see Majuk just flick a switch, and I think he shut him down for the rest of the game.
I think you're right. From memory, he had 8 points in the first 5 minutes and 8 points for the rest of the game.
He did. And again, I think that is 95% because of how Majuk played him. Obviously on a guy like JLA, it's a team effort, but I think Majuk battled him really well, got under his skin, frustrated him, because you could see late in that game, he was playing for the foul rather than playing his finesse type of game. And that was because of what Majuk was doing to him all game. So I thought that was huge for him. But my vote was for Hukporti, purely because, again, JLA probably didn't quite have the same weekend as we've come to expect from him now. He had 16 against the Cats, and then what did he finish with? I think 12 and 15 against the Phoenix. But he was just massive on defense. I think he was a big reason for that run that they made. And being able to play JLA and Hukporti at the same time, I think is very frightening, because that is 2 legitimate centres that would be playing major minutes on most teams, but Hukporti's been happy to take that back seat and play in spurts. But I think he was a major reason why they beat the Phoenix in that game. So he was my vote for this week.
No, very good. Very happy with that. It's great to see a young guy like that choose to come to play in the NBL when let's be fair, he could have gone to play this year anywhere he wanted to in the world, because he's just that highly sought after. He'll be in the NBA this time next year, and the fact that he thought coming to play in the NBL, coming to play for Dean Vickerman would be his best option to get to that NBA future is a great credit. And I think he's a much different physical specimen and a much different player right now than he was even back in December. I think this has been a great move for his future as well.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's great that the world is now recognising the NBL as that development to the NBA, or that pathway to the NBA. And you're right, in the past couple of years, we've seen some guys make that leap because of their development here. And I think he is a prime example of that. And you're right, I think this time next year we'll see him in an NBA jersey somewhere.
Yeah, we will. Thanks for all of that, Cody. Let's take a deep breath here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Before we move on, Cody, just a little bit of a change on the fly here on this week's show. Apologies to anybody who was really looking forward to us catching up with Bevo for this week, but as you can appreciate, we've had a lot of ground to cover on this week's show, and we're already running over time. And Bevo's got a hectic schedule. He's back in Perth for the week, and we're not going to be able to make it work for this week, but I hope you still enjoy the rest of this show. We've got a lot of ground to still cover, and what we'll do next week, we'll have a double guest appearance. We'll catch up with Bevo, and we'll also, as scheduled, catch up with Laos. So, Cody, let's keep moving with the show. Okay, back here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Let's turn the corner a little bit, Cody. We've gone through a lot of what we saw in round 15, but a couple of things I do want to touch on. Now, I know that Taipans put in a bit of a better performance against the Kings on Sunday, but there's still a lot of problems, I think, in that group. And after their loss to the JackJumpers on Friday, that was one of the toughest post-match press conferences I've had to sit through. Adam Ford looked like a completely broken man, to be honest. Jordan Artai was sitting next to him, and he was representing the player group, and if he was a representation of how the players were feeling, they were broken as well. I don't know if you've got a chance to see it, but basically Fordy was embarrassed on behalf of the club because of everything they did on that night. They were celebrating Indigenous round. They were celebrating a lot of things in the Cairns community, and they put in a pretty poor performance. And the chemistry within the playing group wasn't great. There was a lot of infighting there, a lot of complaining. You don't want to put it all on one person, but I kind of feel like Scott Machado's the one that needs to be more of a positive influence right now than he probably is. I mean, what do you make of what's happening with the Taipans at the moment?
It's tough, man, and I feel for Fordy because he can only do so much. The players have got to practice what he's preaching, and they're not doing that, obviously. And you're right, he looks defeated right now. The last couple of weeks we've seen a very zen Fordy compared to what we're used to, and I think that's purely because how he usually coaches wasn't getting through to them. So
that
I think
wasn't
he's
working
had to
either.
try. No. So he's changed his way of coaching a bit to accommodate the players and see if they'll help or see if they will adjust to that. And that hasn't helped them either. It's tough, and you're right. The two performances they put on this weekend weren't great. Machado has not been the Machado that we know. Whether he's still battling that injury or what's going on, he is not the same player as the last year.
What do you make of his demeanour right now? He looks to be complaining a hell of a lot, whether it's to his teammates or to the officials. I mean, do you want him to be a bit more positive in the way he's approaching everything?
Yeah, I think so. I think as a leader of that group, he needs to be that, all right, on to the next type player instead of worrying about what's going on, worrying about he got fouled, this person got fouled, you're not doing the right thing on offense, we're missing assignments defensively. I think he needs to be that positive light for the team. And you're right, he's not doing that right now. He's complaining a lot. to the refs. He's doing a lot of talking to them. And you're right, there's been a bit of bickering between the team. And look, it's tough when you're losing, right? It's really tough. And that kind of brings out that side of some people. And it happens, you know, it is what it is. And I think he just needs to get in that different mindset. Look, they're not the most talented team. They're not going to beat teams purely based on, you know, the talent they have on the floor, because there are other teams that just out-talent them, you know, 2-3 times.
Yep.
So they need to be that close-knit team.
And they do. But I couldn't help thinking in that game on Friday against the JackJumpers, the Taipans probably had more talent than the JackJumpers did.
Yeah, and that's where you see the difference, because the JackJumpers play well together.
Yeah.
You know, they're bought into a culture that Scott Roth is instilled there. Whereas the Cairns playing group hasn't done that with 40. And you can tell all the fractures that are happening. It sucks to see, because, you know, I think Machado is one of the better players in the league when he's full strength. But right now, we're not seeing that. And I think he's starting to take it out on some teammates. And that's where he's got to be that leader of the group and start to bring them in.
What do you think of this as well? I felt for Jordan Nartai, because, as I said, he spoke after the game. He spoke pretty well about trying to explain how the playing group was feeling and what the attitude was. Even the first question when 40 was asked what did he make of the demeanour and the attitude of the playing group, 40 deflected that straight to Jordan, where Jordan had to give that first answer.
Yeah.
I thought he handled it well, but then he didn't play at all on Sunday. How does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, look, he hasn't played a whole lot this year.
No.
I'm not sure why that is. And, you know, no one outside the playing group would probably really know why that is. But yeah, I don't know. It's got to be tough. And I think you're right. We saw a broken 40. We saw Nartai, who looks broken. And they're all just shattered. And that's where, like, you know, winning games can kind of cover that up a bit. But when you're losing games and losing in the fashion that Cairns have the past few, that really takes a toll on you.
It does. I'm not sure things are too much better in Adelaide right now with the 36ers either. Fascinating situation where it turned out Casper Ware was the player that they had decided they wanted. They'd pretty much come to terms with Casper to bring him in for the rest of the season. But it just didn't work out in terms of time-wise, where they wanted him here for the last 12 games of the season. That meant, as we talked about last week, he had to be here last week for that game that they played on Saturday against the Breakers. He wasn't going to be able to get here in time for that. And also, they didn't want to pay his Russian club money for a buyout for a number of reasons, which we can all understand. But even if it wasn't a Russian club, I don't think they were in a position where they did want to pay for a buyout for Casper. So it didn't end up happening. Fascinating situation, but I think it's because he wasn't going to be signing for next season either. If he did come, it was literally going to be for that last 12 games, and there was nothing guaranteed for next season. I don't think it's actually the worst thing. I think this playing group needs to work things out amongst themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, we said it last week, and I didn't think it was a great idea to bring him in unless they were going to do it for next year as well.
Yeah.
And then come to find out that, you know, it was only for this year anyway. So I do think it's worked out best for them, because I think, you know, Adelaide has a decent core group there. But they just got to figure it out. You know, they got to keep playing together and keep plugging away and keep buying into CJ's system and his culture there. And I think bringing Casper in probably would have hindered that rather than helped it. You know, they might have won a couple games purely because of, you know, how good Casper is. But you're right. I think looking forward and into the future, I think this group needs to figure it out with what they have now.
Mitch McCarron is a hell of a strong character. He's the captain of that team. He knows that he's probably not playing how he hoped he would, and he knows his team isn't playing as well. He spoke after that game, and he was shattered, and he felt terrible that his team couldn't get that win in front of their 20th anniversary championship team that they were celebrating. He felt so bad about it, and he wanted to pay back to Adelaide so badly that he was cleaning up the rubbish in the grandstands after the game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's just, credit to the kind of character he is, man. He, he's an awesome dude and an awesome human being. And, that press conference, he was absolutely shattered. And it's tough because, being the captain, he's trying to lead by example, and his game isn't translating how he wants it to. So, he's had a bit of a down season by his standards. So, he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. And that's tough, especially because, he's still young. He's still a young player. But yeah, look, seeing him clean the rafters after was really good. I think that's awesome. You wouldn't see too many players of his caliber doing that, if any.
Just shows how much he cares above everything else, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. And not just for, the basketball, but, the culture and Adelaide itself.
Absolutely. Okay, Cody, before we get to our round 16 preview in the NBL, it's been a heavy show in a lot of ways, and I wanted to take this chance for anyone that might be listening on Sport FM right now to pay our respects to the station's founder, Colin Minson, who passed away this week after a battle with leukemia, and what a life he led. My condolences go out to his wife Irene and family and friends. He lived his life to the fullest. He made an amazing contribution in the West Australian community to WA sport and to cricket and waffle in particular, but also his support here at basketball with the station, and to allow our show onto his radio station every Wednesday night is something that is enormous, and he had an enormous impact on me as well. Just the fact that he would back somebody in like me, who I guess has never been the most confident sort of public speaker and didn't ever think he would find himself talking on radio, but Minno was always enormously supportive of me, and this goes back 15 years now since he first allowed me onto his radio station, and I did a Waffle World show with Shane Hope, which he was a huge supporter of, and then we also brought the NBL Zone, where I used to drag Jesse Wagstaff down to the station every week, and we did a show, and just the fact that he supported me and supported so many people to give them that opportunity is enormous, and now all these years later, for him to still allow the show here, Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, onto his show is enormous. But if we go back, to the start of Sport FM, and he started it because he wanted to give the sports that he didn't feel like were given any respect in any other area of the media. He wanted to give them a platform to get the recognition they deserved, and he just wanted to give those sports the attention that they deserved, and that included basketball, that included SBL going way back, it includes the NBL here as well that we're talking about. But if he didn't do it, he felt like nobody ever would give those sports the recognition that they deserved, and it certainly wasn't a money-making exercise for him. I'm sure that he lost a lot of money over the years just to keep Sport FM up and running and to give shows like this an opportunity to get onto the air. So his contribution is unbelievable, but personal level, his impact on me was massive because he supported me in ways that nobody else ever has, gave me opportunities, and more than anything, he was always so happy to see me anytime he saw me. I would always just walk that little bit extra taller or feel that little bit extra bigger just by having him greet me and be so happy to see me and so happy to talk to me, and the fact that he thought so much of some of the work that I did as well. To have someone like him back me in like he did was huge. He leaves a huge hole in so many areas, and it's an honour to still be here involved on his radio station at Sport FM, and he'll be missed, especially around the WACA. What he did for WA cricket and cricket in general around the country is unparalleled. So it's an enormous loss to everybody. My condolences again to his family, all of his Sport FM family, as well as his wife Irene and his family. Colin Minson lived a hell of a life, and he'll be remembered fondly by a lot of people. Okay, Cody. It's been an emotional show. It's been a show where we've had to cover lots of different ground. Let's get to round 16 in the NBL now. It starts on Thursday night, and this is a massive way to start the round. It's a huge game for both of these teams because, to be honest, I can't see both of them making the playoffs. I think there's only a spot for one of them, and as we talked about earlier, given the JackJumpers are playing so well, there might not be a spot for either of them. So This is a massive game in Wollongong, the Illawarra Hawks and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game, I think. Life on the line for both of them, because I really think the winner of that game is the one that sneaks into the four.
Mm-hmm.
And Phoenix coming off a game that they should never have lost. I think they'll want to fight back. And then, the Hawks, they're still very up in the air with where they're at. And defensively, they're still not there to Gordon's standards. But I think the Phoenix get that one done. Hawks beat them a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. But I think Phoenix get that one done.
No, it's going to be fascinating in so many ways. So will Friday night, for probably the completely opposite reasons. The two teams we just talked about, the Adelaide 36ers are hosting the Cairns Taipans.
Yeah, interesting game. It's going to be one that which team can brush off the past few games, the past few disappointing games, and bounce back quicker. And I think purely from the personnel, I think Adelaide get that one done.
Yeah. No Todd Withers, but I still think they've got a lot of talent in that group that is still going unrealised. These two games on Saturday are huge as well in terms of that race for third and fourth spot. First up, down in, I think it's in Launceston, this one. So we've got the JackJumpers hosting the Hawks.
Tassie just have a confidence against the Hawks.
They do, yeah.
That 22 for 42 3-point game that they played that month or so ago has just instilled confidence in them. And you can see that they just go to another level against the Hawks. And again, this is a massive weekend for Illawarra if they want to actually contend for that top four spot. But I think JackJumpers come out and pounce on them.
And if that's not good enough, your Saturday night continues with another two teams in that playoff mix. The Phoenix are at home to the Sydney Kings.
Yeah, again, just a massive weekend for the Phoenix. And, I think they need to make sure that they can perform against top teams. Sydney being a top team now, one of those contenders. So, tough one. Is Zaid going to be back, do we know?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything, which probably means it's unlikely, I think.
Okay, yeah. Well, that completely changes what I think then. I think Zaid's good enough to be able to guard Creek. But with no Zaid there, I don't think Sydney have an answer for him. So I think Phoenix will get that one done.
That's a great call. There's no matchup there because Martin can't go to Creek because he has to either go to Ashley or Joe Chi. So
yeah,
I think it's a great call. Sunday, let's hope this doesn't get as ugly as it potentially looks on paper. Melbourne United are first up at home to the 36ers.
Yeah, and Melbourne is one of the benchmarks of the league, as we've seen throughout the whole year. And Adelaide being a bit defeated at this point in time. I'm hoping Adelaide hang in there a bit, but Melbourne need to make sure that they go into that ready to play and not just, it's only Adelaide type mindset, which I don't think they will with the coaching staff they've got, but I think Melbourne flex the muscle there and get it done.
Yep, it's hard to see anything else, but this one's a tricky one. So the Brisbane Bullets at home to the Taipans, who would still be on the road after that game on Friday in Adelaide.
Yeah, yep. Tough one. And, Brizzy's kind of in that similar boat in that middle ground of the league. And have had some really good moments, some decent games, but you know, I think that it's tough. Look, I think Brisbane get it done, but yeah, I'm hoping Cairns come out with some grit and put on a bit of a better performance than they have in the past couple of games.
Yep, let's hope so. Last game of the round. First time I think it's since December 19. We're going to have an NBL game back at RAC Arena, and it's the Wildcats and the Breakers. And what they did 6 days earlier, this could be some sort of a show to welcome back for the Red Army as well.
Oh, for sure. And how good was it to see a full New Zealand team?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
And, you know, we saw a team that, had they have had a full team all year, would probably be in that top 4 conversation, which is what I picked at the start of the season.
Yep, no question.
I thought they'd be a contender. Obviously, they've just had zero luck all season. But, you know, you put a full squad together and they take it to the Wildcats that are playing some decent basketball. Different story once you come over here and play in front of the Red Army. But, you know...
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? We go from playing in front of 0 people, all of a sudden 7,000 crazy Red Army fans who haven't seen their team in 4 months.
Right. So it's going to be a very hostile environment. And, you know, there's never been much love lost between the Cats and the Breakers. You know, they've always gone at it and they've had some really good rivalries in the past. So I'm hoping it's another really good game because that game on the weekend was probably the game of the year so far, if you ask me. And
you know what I'm also hoping for? I want Hugo Besson to hit a 3 and tell the Red Army to be quiet.
Oh, God. Yeah, a real induction to the Red Army because he'll hit that 3, tell him to be quiet, and then he'll miss his next one, and then they'll let him have it. So that'd be fun to watch too, actually. But yeah, look, I'm hoping it's another really good game, but I think Perth in front of their home fans for the first time in a couple of months, I think they get it done.
Yep, you would think so. You probably won't be able to go, Cody. You might not be out of isolation yet, even if you have tested negative.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that'll be my last day. So, yeah, unfortunately. But, yeah, is what it is.
That's right. No, you probably had better plans anyway. You might need to get back to training. 2 weeks
Yeah, tell me about it.
2 weeks out of training, you might be struggling for round 1, Cody.
Oh, mate. I was just telling Lauren the other day how I was starting to feel really good and body was feeling good. You know, my touch was starting to get there again and, you know, 2 weeks of not doing anything has just set that back again. So it's going to be a fairly full-on month of getting myself ready before we start.
I think I saw, fittingly, we're 24 days away from round 1. Is that right?
Yep, that's it, mate. That's it.
So we look forward to that, Cody. We look forward to seeing you back in a Warwick Senators jersey for the NBL1 West competition. But before that, we've got to get through the rest of this NBL season, and this weekend will be fascinating. We look forward to seeing what happens, and I'm glad we got through this show, Cody. There was a lot to digest. Our thoughts and our hearts are with the Alier Riak and his family. I mean, above everything else that we can talk about basketball-wise, that's where our thoughts are right now. But we have to get on with our job here, and there's a lot to look forward to in the basketball world. So I hope you've enjoyed our breakdown of what's happening in the NBL. I hope you look forward to what you see now in round 16. I'll wrap it up. I'm Chris Pike, but Cody Ellis, thank you for your thoughts on this week's show, and maybe just leave us with what you're looking forward to most out of this weekend.
Seeing the Red Army go at it again, man. It's something that's been missing from the NBL. So no, it'll be good to see Perth back in Perth, and you know, coming home second on the ladder. That's dangerous signs for the rest of the league. So that'll be fun to see.